What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Very interesting news in the sport of boxing. Some recent negotiations are taking place for some potential fights you may or may not have heard about. So I want to spend some time and talk about them. The fights that I'm going to mention, I personally like them. I think they're great matchups, and I want to spend a little bit of time talking about them. The first one is Tyson Fury versus David Haye. We all seen this coming. Both fighters are stars in their own right, big overseas. They're heavyweights. Tyson Fury has a lot of kind of like the Adrian Broner-ish loudmouth antics. He's a showman. He showboats. He talks a lot of trash. I mean, the guy's like 6'8", 6'9". Um, he showed some tenacity in his last fight against Cunningham. He was knocked down in the second round, went on to knock out his opponent in the seventh round. David Haye, a person who looked good in his last fight, a person who is kind of constantly in the shadow of Klitschko, always looking for some redemption in the Klitschko fight, in the Klitschko match. That fight has been unsuccessful, that rematch. Um, David Haye is a person who's dabbled in the idea of retirement. He hasn't been the most active fighter, but that looks like a fight that is going to take place most likely. Both fighters sound like they want it. Both fighters seem to talk trash. Tyson Fury has stated that he's going to knock David Haye out. That's what he vows to knock him out. I really like the matchup. The heavyweight division is not stacked, but it is getting better with some emerging talent and some interesting matchups. So, whether you hate Tyson Fury or you love him, if you think he's going to succeed in the heavyweight division or not, um, props to the guy for stepping up his competition with David Haye. David Haye is definitely a step up from people like Cunningham. No disrespect to Cunningham, but Cunningham was coming up in weight and not really a true. I mean, he's lean and cut up and muscular, but he wasn't necessarily a true heavyweight, and he gave Tyson Fury some problems early. So I like the matchup Tyson Fury versus David Haye. The contract has been sent, so we'll see if that fight does take place. Another interesting fight: Gennady Golovkin versus Martin Murray. Now, if you watched the fight last week, Gennady Golovkin versus Matthew Macklin, um, you would definitely think that this fight needs to take place. Golovkin's last fight, he stopped his opponent in 3 rounds with a vicious body shot. He was doing some great body work. Um, the good thing about Gennady Golovkin, he looked very composed. That's what I really like. He knows he has punching power, but he stayed relatively composed. He didn't look too aggressive, overly aggressive, overextending himself. He looked very patient, and he waited for the knockout to happen, even though he has probably destructive power, and if he has a chin, he might be able to walk through a lot of guys' shots just to land something vicious. But he showed some composure. He held back and fought the right type of fight, and the knockout happened when it happened, which was the third round. This was also supposed to be his toughest test against Matthew Macklin, a respectable, tough Irishman. Oh, don't you know, the magically delicious? I thought it would be the toughest test for Gennady Golovkin. Sorry, random Irish accent. It's supposed to be his toughest test, and he passed with flying colors. Triple G, he's on a roll. I mean, he's looking like a wrecking ball. So I would really be anxious to see Martin Murray. Martin Murray, another fighter who's pretty much been under the radar. He's had some tough fights. His most recent fight with Sergio Martinez, he went in Sergio Martinez's backyard, Sergio Martinez's hometown of Argentina, and I thought he should have won. I watched the fight again. I thought he should have won. They had a second knockdown that was ruled a slip. It looked like a knockdown to me, and that looked like the end is near for Sergio Martinez. Martinez, to me, did not look good in that fight. It didn't look like anything he threw was really affecting Martin Murray. Um, the reason why it was even a close fight is early on, Sergio Martinez looked like he was trying to put on a show for his fans, and he was pretty aggressive. And Martin Murray was more or less just blocking. He was just very defensive minded, and he didn't have a lot of output in terms of his own power punches or his own shots. And then mid to late rounds, that's when he picked up the pace, and I thought he did enough to win. Either way, he looks like a tough competitor, and if Gennady Golovkin can run through Martin Murray in the same way, I would be impressed if he does it the same way he did Matthew Macklin. Because one thing I noticed early on when Sergio Martinez fought Martin Murray at the weigh-in, Martin Murray looks like a big dude. He looks really big. He's tatted up and he just looks like a big frame fighter. And it didn't look like he lacked stamina. Sometimes you get fighters who are really muscular and um, during the late rounds they don't look so good because maybe they're more bulky than cardio focused in the and when they're lifting or whatever they're doing. But Martin Murray seemed to come on the mid to late rounds. He looked better as the fight went on um, overall. So I'd be anxious to see it. Martin Murray, also another fighter who spent some time in jail. He was in prison for a time early on in his life. So this is not always a given, but sometimes when fighters spend time in prison, um, usually, I would say usually, they have tough skin. Because whatever you see in prison and jail, it's not like everyday life, like going to the grocery store, Rayleigh's or Publix or wherever you guys have. Um, what you see in the prison, in the yard, and in sales and all kinds of stuff, I mean, it's completely different than the outside world. So a lot of times people who do jail stints and time in prison, they're a little bit more mentally strong and just thick skinned. So I'd really be anxious to see Gennady Golovkin. Martin Murray was in talks to do fight Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. And I really like that matchup, but I also like the Gennady Golovkin matchup. The Chavez Jr. fight fell through because apparently Martin Murray has some problems with his visa. Um, they're trying to make the fight in the United States, and that looks like the only potential roadblock. I think both fighters want a shot. I think Martin Murray had a good showing against Sergio Martinez at home that would warrant this fight. Gennady Golovkin obviously is on like a 14 knockout streak or something crazy. He had a good showing against his toughest test. So I think this is a fight that both fighters would want, and a fight that both fighters should take. The only roadblock that I've heard is the visa situation. And in the last fight, Joseph Agbeko says he wants to move up to 122 and face Yermo Rigondeaux. I really like the matchup. I would definitely favor Rigondeaux, just seeing what Rigondeaux did against a much bigger Nonito Donaire. Um, I like Joseph Agbeko. I don't think he's a pushover. I think he's a tough, strong fighter. Um, his first fight with Abner Mars was definitely close. The second one, I thought Abner Mars clearly won it. Um, I thought Abner Mars in the first fight, the low blows were like ridiculous, so that made it closer. I thought he should have lost some points for that. But Joseph Agbeko, again, he's not a pushover. He's a tough competitor, and I would like to see someone like Rigondeaux tested. I don't know. I mean, it's kind of hard when Rigondeaux already beat the number one rated guy at 122, Nonito Donaire. It's like, where do you go from here? Because he hasn't really expressed much interest to move up in weight, and I don't think Rigondeaux is that tall. I don't know how he would look at the higher weights because his actual stature, his frame. Um, so he hasn't really expressed any interest. So really, what's out there for Rigondeaux other than Vic Darchinyan or someone like Joseph Agbeko, possibly a Leo Santa Cruz? But then you have the conflict of interest with the two different promotional companies. As far as Agbeko and Rigondeaux, I really like it. It's a contrast in styles. I don't think Agbeko really fights in the exact same way as Nonito Donaire. So I would be anxious to see how he looks against another um, proven champion. Another reason I favor Rigondeaux is because Joseph Agbeko, he's been pretty inactive. It's funny because there's talented fighters out there, and they let this inactivity kill him. Joseph Agbeko, maybe he fought and I just missed it or something, but I don't think he's fought in a while. Joseph Agbeko, Josh Clottey, people like Andre Durrell, James Kirkland. I'm like, these fighters have skill and have some talent in there, but they let these inactivities kill them. Kareem Mayfield, another fighter. I haven't seen Kareem Mayfield since the Herrera fight. So I would like to see it. I don't know how good he'll look at 122, and I don't know what kind of condition he's been keeping his body in because I haven't seen Joseph Agbeko in quite some time. And to move up in weight and fight a guy like Rigondeaux after a long layoff for months or a year or whatever it's been of inactivity, I don't know if that's the best look for your career, but props to Agbeko for embracing the challenge. Let me know what you guys think of these potential matchups. Which ones do you like? Which ones do you want to see? As always, hate, comment, or subscribe. Till next video, it's Ego signing off.